Before you click off this video, no, I'm not talking about how good of a person War Machine was. No, definitely not. So please just stay around because we're gonna actually be talking about his career as an MMA fighter, because I'll be honest, his career was one I was never really interested in following, especially after news broke out on what he did to his ex-girlfriend. But even during it, I just didn't really care. I know he was very notorious back in his MMA days when he was fighting, especially with all the things he would do outside of the cage in terms of his career as an adult film star and also other run-ins with the law. But even all this, I just was never intrigued. But because he'll never fight again due to his life sentence, it really makes me think what could have been had War Machine stayed out of trouble. Did he have the potential to be great, or was he just an average fighter? And the way to find the answer to this is by asking the bigger question: how good was War Machine actually? But first, shout out to the Undisputed members of my Patreon. They get the extra perk of a shout out before each video, but even the intro members get early access and video to the Kiiyon Kimura podcast, and as always, the money goes to charity. Now let's get to it. War Machine began his MMA career on February 29, 2004 at the age of 22. After going 4-1, he became a contestant on the 6th season of The Ultimate Fighter, and he wasn't originally part of the cast. He actually came into the house because this one guy injured his elbow. So just think about that. If this guy never injured his elbow, War Machine would have never came onto this show and possibly not garner popularity in MMA. Regardless, War Machine made it to the show and he joined Team Matt Serra, and even Matt Serra knew there was something up with this guy. Regardless, in his first fight in the house was against Tommy Spears, and War Machine looked good early as he secured a takedown and immediately got a hold of Tommy's back, and he looked very close to locking up a rear naked choke, but he was unable to get that done, and eventually midway through the round, Tommy was able to reverse him, and this led to ground and pound of his own. And by the time the round was done, War Machine's energy was depleted big time. So in round 2, it was easy for Tommy to secure the takedown and throw ground and pound and basically maintain top control for the entire round. So by the end, Tommy won by unanimous decision. So of course, War Machine was out of the running for becoming the Ultimate Fighter, but this didn't stop him from causing more chaos in the house, and this included him and some of his other teammates giving the opposing teams toilet and upper decker. And basically an upper decker is when you take a shit in the top part of the toilet. So instead of the bowl, you lift up the top and take a shit there. I guess that's some sort of prank, but this upset the other team big time once they found out, especially Jared Rollins, who confronted War Machine right away, and War Machine was like, yo, I'm sorry, but Jared like snatched his hat. Like, that was the funniest thing. He didn't even hit him, he just snatched his hat off his head. I loved it. And this immediately ensued in a brawl, but nothing big really happened. But of course, the tensions were still high and the UFC wanted to capitalize on this. So at the Ultimate Fighter finale, War Machine fought Jared Rollins, and this was a very fun back and forth fight as both men brought the fight down and had their moments on top. I would say overall, War Machine had more moments on the ground in round 1, while Jared had more moments on the ground in round 2, and then in round 3 the two just went all out, and at one point Jared connected with knees and a punch that dropped War Machine, and War Machine looked really close to being finished, but somehow he was able to reverse Jared, and this immediately led to some big shots from above, which forced the ref to step in. At UFC 84, War Machine fought Yoshiyuki Yoshida, and right away War Machine clinched up with Yoshiyuki, which was a big mistake because this immediately led to a judo throw, but War Machine was able to get back up and attempt a takedown of his own, but this left him open to an anaconda choke, which Yoshiyuki locked up and put War Machine to sleep. The fight only lasted 56 seconds. After this defeat, the UFC released War Machine, and a lot of that had to do with War Machine rejecting a fight that the UFC offered him. But alongside that, War Machine made comments about the late Evan Tanner, who lost his life in the desert due to heat exposure. And War Machine claimed that Evan did it on purpose because Evan realized that his career was over and that he didn't have that much money, so he took his life. So these comments obviously did not sit well with many people, especially with the UFC. And alongside with War Machine rejecting the fight, he was gone and went on to fight on the regional circuit, where he found a lot of success. He actually picked up 5 wins in a row before fighting David Mitchell. And for most of the fight, David was trying to bring the fight down, but for the most part, War Machine was the one who was bringing the fight down. And it wasn't only because he was able to bring the fight down, but it was also because David was okay with pulling guard and trying to look for a submission, but he was unable to lock anything. And if anything, War Machine looked closer to locking up submissions in this fight than David, in my opinion. And with him being on top more, it just looked better if I was a judge, but I guess the judges this night thought otherwise, because by the end, David won by split decision. Following this defeat, War Machine fought Zach Light. After trading some punches, the two clinched up, and this led to Zach bringing the fight down, but he immediately got reversed, and War Machine was able to get a hold of his back and lock up a rear naked choke that put Zach to sleep. War Machine went on to lose his next fight to John Alessio before fighting Roger Huerta, and this was a back and forth fight as both men had their moments on the ground, as they both secured takedowns and threw ground and pound. They also traded on the feet and both had their moments there. So going into round 3, it really was either man's fight. But then War Machine was able to bring the fight down with a Kimura attempt, and this transitioned into an armbar, which looked very close to ending the fight. And although Roger was able to get back on top, I think something happened. I think he had some sort of injury or something like that. It looked like a rib injury, but this caused him to get reversed by War Machine. And after a lot of ground and pound, the ref finally stepped in. After this win, War Machine signed with Bellator, but before his debut at Bellator 63, War Machine went to jail for 2 years due to a prior assault back in December of 2009. Then 6 months after his release, he made his debut with Bellator. And after picking up his first 2 wins with the promotion, War Machine fought Ron Kessler at Bellator 104. War Machine rushed in right away, but it was Ron who was able to get a hold of his back, and for the entire round, he attempted to lock up a rear naked choke. And even though War Machine defended, he was also eating some punches that eventually opened a cut on his face. And with blood in his eyes and with his energy tank running low right away, this made it easy for Ron to secure the rear naked choke before the end of the round, which put War Machine to sleep. And this was his most recent fight, as on August 8th, 2014, Bellator released War Machine after news broke out that he raped and assaulted his former girlfriend. He was convicted on 29 of 36 felony counts, and this gave him a life in prison sentence with the possibility of parole after 36 years of serving time. So it's pretty clear that War Machine won't be fighting anytime soon. So after going 14-5 in MMA, how good was War Machine actually? So the sad thing I would say about his career was that he was wasted potential. He had an overall average career, I would say. 14-5 is pretty impressive, but the level of competition that he beat wasn't the greatest. But for the amount of fame that he garnered for that tiny spotlight that he made for himself through MMA was very impressive, and I do have to give him credit for that. And I'm not talking more so the illegal things that he was doing, like getting into fights outside of the cage, but more so the gimmick of him changing his name to War Machine legally because of a lawsuit from TNA Wrestling. And then also maintaining an MMA career alongside a career in adult entertainment. That too is just very headline worthy. But even his troubles with the law helped him gain notoriety. I mean, Bellator was happy to build up the story of an ex-convict making his return to MMA. They liked War Machine's bad boy persona, and I'm sure many others did as well, which is crazy to say because this gave him a reason to be bad. Regardless, he knew what to do to stay in the public eye. And overall, I think he was a solid fighter. Obviously, his bread and butter was his grappling. He was able to secure takedowns, lock up submissions, throw ground and pound. And no, he wasn't the greatest on the feet, but he was able to trade with his opponent and connect with some shots, but was also susceptible to eating some shots as well. Regardless, he was tough because he was able to eat these shots and still fight through it. And whenever he got submitted by a choke, he wouldn't tap out. But being physically tough can only bring a fighter so far, because mentally, War Machine was very weak. And this was best displayed on The Ultimate Fighter, where he would get so frustrated during training. And moments like this would stop him from growing and learning as a fighter. Even Matt Serra himself noticed this and said War Machine wouldn't go far with a head like his. And he was right, because War Machine went on to refuse a fight with the UFC, and this led to an average MMA career. And that's what I mean by saying it's sad to see such wasted potential, because he had the physical strength to do it. His mental weakness was the reason why he couldn't make it to the next level, and it was also the reason for all the troubles in his personal life. But why was War Machine like this? And the sad truth was because he was a product of his environment. War Machine grew up with a mother who was a drug addict, and at the age of 13, he unsuccessfully performed CPR on his father, who died of a heart attack. And I'm not trying to defend what he did, but there's no doubt that these traumatic events in War Machine's life shaped him into the person that he is today. And that's someone who never learned how to cope with tough times in a healthy manner. When he'd get upset, he would express his emotions through anger and aggression. And with a mindset like that, I can tell that it was probably very difficult for a person like War Machine to take the necessary criticism that is needed in order to improve as a fighter. Plus, I'm sure taking damage to the head did not help. So yes, had he been mentally strong, I could have definitely seen him not only go far in MMA, but also go far in life. That's why I would give his MMA career a 5 out of 10. Another thing I wanted to add was that his fighting style was very similar to Brennan Moreno's back in the day. The difference was that Brennan had the mental strength to grow as a fighter and evolve from grappler to an all-around champion. So if there's anything that we can learn from War Machine's career, it's that mental health is very important. Not only as an MMA fighter who is trying to become one of the best, but also as a person who is bound to go through lows in life. Because had he gotten the help that he needed, then War Machine may have been a fighter that we'd be celebrating today. My name is Kiiyon, and this is my take on War Machine. Do you agree, disagree, or have something else to add? Please put in the comments down below, because I love to read it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. But that's a lot for now, so I'll see you in my next one.